Hey everybody, and welcome to the Knowledge Pool, a think tank of games and magic. If you haven't been playing Ikoria in the last couple weeks, then you have missed out on some controversy. I use the term missed out very liberally. But, just to catch you up, on top of having mechanics that have been pulling the meta in interesting directions and a limited format that I find joyful to play, Ikoria also brought us 19 of the new cards brought in an alternate art, all made to look like creatures from the Godzilla universe. Using a photorealistic style, no one I've seen has any complaints with the art itself. Well, not how they look anyway. The main problem is people seem to think that these creatures don't belong in Magic. I want to address this, but there's a lot of ground to cover, and I want to be able to talk about things for people who don't know an altered art from a penned proxy. Not everyone needs that background though, and if you don't, this is where you can skip to where we just talk turkey. So, here we go. The first card that I ever fell in love with the art of, truly fell in love with the art, was not a Magic card. Even though I had played the card game for many years, the first card art that got me into card art was from a little game called Cardfight Vanguard. Still Vampire was a card whose art was created by the artist who did Yu Yu Hakusho, my favorite action serial to this day. Still Vampire is everything I thought a vampire was at the time that it came out. Dark, seductive, even a little silly. Magic has amazing art throughout its history, and ties itself to the underlying story they create for each set. In the second half of the game's life, stories are generally confined to a plane, and that plane provides a setting as well as a general rule set for what goes on there, which retranslates into mechanics as set-specific keywords and evergreen keywords used for this place. For example, the constellation mechanic is tied to Theros. It was in the original Theros block and came back for Theros Beyond Death. There have been plenty of cards that do things when an enchantment enters the battlefield on multiple planes in multiple stories. But since Theros has this Olympus theme, sky, gods thing going on, it was the first set to give these mechanics a name, and all cards that have Constellation are either from the Theros sets or are referencing Theros as a plane. We are not likely to see a reprint of Pious Wayfinder in a non-Theros themed set, unless it ends up in a product that doesn't have a lore tie, like a modern set or a pre-constructed set. In another video I'm working on, I talk about the various types of players there are and the reasons people play. In it, I don't mention Vorthos. Vorthos is a name given to players who care more about art, lore, and flavor than they do about silly things like deck consistency and winning games. For Vorthos, the fun of the game comes from its stories. A Vorthos might argue that you don't put more than one copy of a legendary in a deck because only one of that person exists in the story. Or they might tell you that you can't run Jace and Tezzeret in the same deck because it's a flavor fail. For this type of player, the story and the art can dictate the way they feel about a card. Which brings us to this guy. So the lore mages and the Vorthoses of the world have looked at these new Godzilla cards and found them confusing. Godzilla exists in the Magic multiverse. What does this mean? There are so many questions now. Helicopters exist? Skyscrapers? Godzilla lives in Japan. Does Japan exist now? Is Earth Ikoria?
You maniacs! You blew it up! Oh, damn you! God damn you all to hell!
The answer to all these questions is no. Just no. So the people at Wizards of the Coast said in their opening to Ikoria that these cards are a fun cross-promotion with Toho, because the set was going to have a monster movie theme, and it worked out that they were allowed to use the licenses. This is likely because Hasbro, which owns Wizards of the Coast, also has some sort of relationship with Toho Company. The cards are, in fact, not Godzilla, and have their own names which are visible in smaller text under the altered art. This was smart of Wizards of the Coast, because it means now they can reprint these powerful cards later, even if they lose the rights to using the Godzilla art. But the Vorthos rise with pitchforks and torches. They rally behind a united front, screaming in unison at the heavens. Ow! My immersion. Now, before I get into it, I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. If you like playing the game because you're into the lore or the art or whatever, that's entirely up to you, and I applaud you for having a reason to do the things that you enjoy. But I was speaking about this casually in a Twitch chat the other day, and I was met with some, hostility. So I think it's only right that I explain my feelings on this, and I encourage you to challenge me without mentioning my mother's proclivities in the comments below. Number 1. Altered art. For those new to it, altered art is a mainstay of freelance artists everywhere. Sometimes people like a card, but the art is, people pay other people to carefully paint over their card, making sure that it's as textureless as possible so you can't feel it through a sleeve so they can use it in tournaments. Or they just grab a sticker and slap it on the original card. Don't do that, kids. It's illegal. It's a proxy. These players do this so they can display what they think a cool art for this card would look like. Sometimes it's full art depictions of original art, and sometimes it's a pop culture reference. But always it was a player thing, and not really done by Wizards of the Coast. This is better. It hits all the coolness and beauty of an altered art with no legality issues. You don't have to ask if you can play these in tournaments. Wizards made them just for that. And even though some people say that having the alternate name bigger than the actual name is confusing, I think space restrictions required them to do something, and this was an elegant solution. You might see Cthulhu on cards that clearly say Emrakul, but no one ever got on the case of the skeevy guy at your shop because this is not a lore-accurate representation of a mountain. This is not the first time that Magic has had other IPs turned into Magic cards. Last year, we saw the very popular My Little Pony small print set, and a few years back, we had a silver border promotion with Transformers. Most people justify these by the silver border, which makes them for fun cards and not legal in most any format. I personally find this distinction unnecessary. Yes, it's true that these cards are not tournament legal, but that's not for the sake of any Vorthoses out there. There's no reason for Godzilla cards to be not legal, as they're just stand-ins for cards that would likely exist anyway. Only the art has changed. Now, maybe someday down the line, we'll see Transformers become alt arts for Gear Hulks on a Kaladesh return. Or My Little Pony characters play legendary horses on a set based in whatever plane Homelands happened on. But it won't change the actual card. And it won't change whatever lore is already there. Okay, here comes the big one. So the main concern of this, from what I can see, is that having these cards in is a break of immersion. These cards bring modern settings into our fantasy game. They look so out of place. Magic is an original, fantastical product that sparks the imagination, and it's never gone to such gross reaches as to rip off another IP and use it in a set. It's outrageous. My immersion is gone. Okay. Breathe, friend. You want some water? Okay, there's no easy way to say this. Look into my eyes. This is going to be tough. Magic the Gathering is not original. Alright, hold on. Just give me a second to explain it. Hey, you! Put down that cauldron of tar. That's better. Okay, so it's not like no parts of Magic's story is special to it. There's lots of characters or small storylines that really are the creation for the mothership's product. But we can be adults and face something here. Magic has spent many, many years finding inspiration in cultural fiction. Innistrad's entire aesthetic was ripped straight from Gothic horror. Zendikar was designed to give the feeling of an old Dungeons & Dragons campaign. The Eldrazi are Lovecraftian in nature, like that joke earlier. Grimm's fairy tales, Arthurian legends, Greek myths, Tolkien, Stoker, Shelley, Avengers, Land of the Lost, and now, Kong Skull Island. There's an entire set based off of Aladdin. Wait, that's Scheherazad's 1001 Tales, but the point still stands. Now, none of this is bad. All artists take inspiration from life, and works of fiction are regularly influenced by their predecessors. But own it. Know that the game you love has used characters, settings, and plot lines from bedtime stories to major movie pictures the whole time. There's nothing new or offensive about any of this. It's just a card. A really sweet looking card. I love you, Jaws. But if you don't like it, don't run it. I am not trying to say that you are wrong by wanting something specific. If Gadon isn't your cup of tea, you can oppress people with Garuda just as easily. And I do agree that the bugs in Arena that keep you from fully turning on or off styles are whack, and they fixed them in the most recent patch. I am encouraging you to play the game the way you want to play it, but that goes both ways. Some opponent is eventually going to crush you under Godzilla's giant clawed foot, and you'll have to make peace with that. Or play blue. Blue seems pretty good against all of these cards. Anyway, that's what I think. Tell me what you think in the comments below. I tend to let a topic run away with me, don't I? Is it better if I just keep to the debate, or does the background knowledge make you excited? Tell me that too. And while you're down there, you could always hit the subscribe button and something good might happen. If you like watching someone stream Magic while talking about these things, consider following my Twitch, link in the description below. And thank you for your suggestions and topics. And yes, even you, toxic person from Twitch chat, your arguments spur thought-provoking questions, even if you are a huge dick. I've been Dish, and everybody, out of the pool. Old Godzilla was hopping around Tokyo City like a big playground when suddenly Batman burst from the shade. Hit Godzilla with a back grenade. Godzilla got pissed and began to attack, but didn't expect to be blocked by Shaq, who proceeded to open up a can of Shaq Fu when Aaron Carter jumped out of the blue and started beating up Shaquille O'Neal. Then they both got flattened by the Batmobile, but before he could make it back to the Batcave, Abraham Lincoln stepped out of his grave and took an AK-47 out from under his hat and blew Batman away with a rat-a-tat-tat. But he ran out of bullets and he ran away because Optimus Prime came to save the day. This is the ultimate showdown, ultimate destiny. Good guys, bad guys, and explosions as far as the eye can see. And only one will survive. I wonder who it will be. This is the ultimate showdown.